Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to another live this morning. Hope you're having a great start to your day. And looking forward to our little session together today. And I want to say hello to a few friends that come on, and hopefully you're getting your notices and that we're on this morning. So good morning, Brahim. You're number one on the hit parade from Portland, Oregon. Good morning. Jen, Cape Breton, Andrea from Niagara Falls, the kidneys of Canada. Yvonne, good morning. Manette, Lori Lee, Ventura, California. Nativity, good morning. Madeleine, bonjour. Mary Jane, Connecticut. Bill, good morning. Sandra, Aurelia. Carrie, Nebraska. And Kathy, good morning. Micheline, bonjour. Mary, how are you? And Nellie, how are you? All my dear friends. Mike from Norwood. Fran from Orangeville. Georgie, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Chantal, Ottawa, good morning. Denise from Missouri. Deb, Timmons, Nick from our staff. Karen, Sault Ste. Marie. Pat, good morning. And Debbie, Sturgeon Falls. Michelle, good morning. Kevin, Oshawa. Barbara, Kansas. Jeanette from our staff. And Maria, bon matin de Oshawa. Brian, good morning. Milika, Bethel. Benny Lynn, right? That's really what it is. You know, I gotta stop saying Bethel. Elaine, good morning. You get it. Earlton, bonjour. Alma, Sturgeon. Jody, Jerry. And we love you guys. And Donna, Park Hill. And Cheryl, West Virginia. Cheryl, you have no idea. That just wants me to, you want me to sing. Julie. And another Judy. And Cindy, good morning from Ottawa. Daphne. And Sharon. Fluffy Snow. Louise. Nouveau Brunswick. Elizabeth, good morning. Mississauga. Marnie. Smith Falls. John, our friend from Elgin, Illinois. Ronaldo, Washington State. Louise, Cornwall. Catherine, Springdale, Newfoundland. I was waiting for Newfoundland. Lynn, good morning. Let's get going. Denise, how are you? Another Lynn. And Dave, good morning. From Bolton. And Marie. Luella, West Tennessee. And Beverly, Carol, Wasaga, beautiful, Terry, Georgetown, and Karen. Okay, let's get going. My sister gave me a blast the other day because I didn't see her name. And she was trying to say hello. And I somehow I didn't see it, or I missed it, or who knows. Okay? Now, I was reading a study on cancer in the last few days, and I flagged it because I want to talk about it this morning. Okay? And it's amazing what we're learning more and more and more about cancer. Okay? Now, cancer and cancer cells are much different than ordinary cells, okay? And here's the headline of the study. Cancer cells have 7 times more receptors to insulin than ordinary cells, okay? So, here's me, and okay, for folks listening later on a podcast, you have to use your imagination, okay? because I'm going to show you something. Believe you me, I flunked art. The left side of my brain, it don't work, okay? I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. And anyway, but here you see, okay, and I'm going to bring it up a little close. I drew a picture of a cell. You say, that don't look like a cell. Yeah, you're right. It really doesn't. But here's me, okay? Because I'm very visual. And the way I learned in school is I was visual. I had to write everything out. That's how I studied. And if I could do a little drawing, I couldn't even draw a stick man properly. But it doesn't matter. In my mind, I was able, okay, here's a cell, and here, okay? Now, I want to show you an ordinary cell, okay? What do you see in a cell? Of course, you guys know this from, biology and in high school, even in grade school, okay? Cell wall, nucleus, and I didn't draw them here, but there'd be a lot of mitochondria right there. By the way, the cell wall is made up of cholesterol. How can cholesterol be bad for you? Anyway, I don't want to stick on it. But if I bring this a little closer, you can see I drew these little things that come off the cell wall. There's antennas there, okay? They don't look like an antenna to you, but to me they do, okay? Those are antennas for vitamin D, okay? So your cells, you are a human solar panel. Your brain cells, your heart cells, your muscle cells, your liver cells, every cell in your body has a little antenna, has antennas on it, looking for the sun. Amazing, isn't it? Okay? Now you guys know that, and most of the rest of the world, they don't even know that. They even though they feel better in the sun, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, that's not what I wanted to focus in on, although we'll come back to that. When you look at the little drawing, I drew, okay, where did I put them? Right here. Little docking stations on your cell. Okay? They're docking stations. And you got lots of them. And those docking stations are for insulin. Okay? So, when you eat, insulin is a food hormone. It must do something with sugar. And remember, a piece of bread is going to be sugar rapidly. So bread, cereal, pasta, rice, pastries, muffins, bagels, store-bought milk, carbs, sugar, okay? And your cells, okay, especially your muscle cells and your liver cells and your fat cells, they have receptors there. They have docking stations for insulin, because insulin is going to come knock on the door at the docking station and say, open up, let me in, I must store sugar. Sugar can't stay in the bloodstream. You guys know that. Sugar destroys your blood vessels very, very rapidly. So you got to get rid of sugar, and you have an organ, your pancreas, that secretes insulin, and insulin is dedicated to storing sugar. Okay? Now, that's an ordinary cell that I drew you. What this study is saying, that cancer cells, they're a different puppy. They're a different puppy. Cancer cells develop 7 times more docking places on the cell for insulin. 7 times more than an ordinary cell. Hello? Hello? You out there? Now you know it, but the world don't know it. So I'm trying to get their attention. Hello? What do we know about cancer cells? There's 7 times more receptors for insulin on a cancer cell. That ought to tell us something. Okay? Now, there's other things that destroy and make cancer cells proliferate, or at least start. Okay? So, let's talk about that, then we'll come back to food. Okay? So, you look at a cell, and one of the first places in a cancer cell that gets destroyed is the nucleus. Okay? The nucleus. It gets destroyed and tampered with primarily through the process of oxygenation. Okay, so let me just tell you again, you guys know that. When you see, take an apple. I don't know if there's a better example. Okay, at least it's one that I always used in my mind when someone talked to me about oxygenation or oxidizing or rusting out. That's what I used to think. Okay? You take an apple, you cut it in half. And right before your eyeballs, it doesn't take long, it starts to get brown. It oxidizes. The apple rusts out. And when that gets accelerated, that aging, the premature aging of your body at the cellular level, that's one of the processes in cancer. Okay? Now, here's another thing. So, we'll come back to food because we talked about insulin. The other problem is oxidizing, rusting out of the cell. And in a cancer cell, that kind of oxidizing is on steroids. I mean, it's a rapid aging of the cell. You ever seen someone, have you ever experienced this? I did many a time in my office because I had people come to see me. I hadn't seen them in years. And then they come into the office and I barely recognize them. They said, "Doc, I'm here. I got cancer. Can you help me?" And, sometimes you couldn't tell, just superficially looking at them, but sometimes you could really tell. I'm thinking in my mind's eye of a few people that, holy moly, you're in deep trouble. I mean, I can hardly recognize you. I wouldn't say that, but I'd be thinking it. What was happening on the inside of their bodies? That cancer was taking off like wildfire, and they were prematurely aging. They looked like they were 80 years old when they were 40. Terrible. Cancer takes off. Okay? And that happens in primarily in the nucleus of the cells, where your DNA and RNA are. And that gets hit. That can get hit. Now, what causes oxidation? What causes premature aging? Well, sugar. Sugar is one of the worst things. And the sugar has, it's a double-edged sword. Because in cancer, sugars can start the process by causing aging of the cell. But then, of course, you and I know this, that cancer cells need fuel. And cancer cells love sugar and hate steak. Because there's no fuel in steak. Cancer cells are like teenagers. They need junk food. Cancer cells don't survive on good food. If food is nutrient dense, cancer can't feed on it. Cancer needs sugar. Okay? And we've done that hundreds of times with my audience over the years. When I had my radio show, and I talked about sugar all the time. They said, Doc, is that all you ever talk about? That's not all I talk about, but it's important because cancer needs fuel. But listen, Linda. Cancer cells have receptors. They have docking stations even more than an ordinary cell for what? Insulin. Insulin. And you only need insulin, really, when you're eating crappy foods. Okay? You don't need a lot of insulin. You're eating a steak, you don't need insulin. It's on the sidelines going, I've got nothing to do. You know? So how can steak, eggs, or cheese be bad for you? It's not. Not even close. Okay, so then, I've always said this about cancer. Cancer's a perfect storm. Okay? It's a perfect storm. And at the start of it, of course, is metabolic storm. Insulin, the docking stations, food, gotta look at that. And then you have oxidation, the premature aging of the cell. One of the factors is sugar, the other is environmental, I'm sure. I don't negate the environment. Okay? And one of the things that I believe that's happening, okay, in cancer, is the not only oxidation, but the, how can I say this? And be, and try and be woke. It's the femaleization, I just made up a word, of cancer. What do I mean by that? Okay, part of the process in growth of cancer is estrogen, the female hormone. Okay? The problem is with estrogen. Okay? Ladies, makes you beautiful. Why are women so much better looking than men? Okay? No, but it's true. Women are beautiful. Right? Why? Well, you have estrogen. Okay? So estrogen's a wonderful hormone. But not too much. Not too much. Because when you get too much estrogen, and remember, how do you get too much estrogen? Oh, Doc, I'm a woman. Yeah, but that's all right as long as you're in balance. No, every chemical that we can think of, if you can't pronounce it, look at your boxes of food. Look at your, look in your kitchen cabinet under your sink. All those chemicals, all those, they mimic estrogen. Okay, they mimic estrogen. Your body thinks, hey, that's estrogen. Come here. I like you. You know what the problem with estrogen is? It makes things grow. Estrogen is a growth hormone. Okay? Ladies, don't try and get to 8% body fat or whatever. I used to tell women, listen, Linda, you don't want to get skinny as a rake. Why do you want that? You want to be lean, but you don't want to be skinny as a rake. You have estrogen. Estrogen is good for you when it's balanced. You need estrogen. And it's funny that when I used to test estrogen and progesterone in my office, I never met a woman that didn't have estrogen. Even though they were menopausal, they still had estrogen. And by the way, I never, ever recommended estrogen therapy, ever. Never did. I don't like it. I never did, because you don't need estrogen, my friend, ladies. You need progesterone. You need to elevate that progesterone, not estrogen. You're getting bombarded with estrogen every day. Every chemical. Food that has been sprayed in pesticide and herbicides and sprayed. You're getting estrogen coming out both your ears. You don't need any more estrogen. And it's a cancer proliferation hormone when it's out of control. I think it's one of the reasons we see so many kids with cancer today. One of the factors is all of those chemicals, those estrogen. We live, you can't get away from it. People that tell me they can get away from that, oh, Dr. Martin, I'm going to go live in Costa Rica on an island by myself. I actually heard that once. I'm going to live on an island. Hello. Plastic is in the ocean. Plastic is on top of Mount Everest. Plastic is in every placenta that's tested. Every placenta. You want to get away from plastic? Good luck. And when they gave you the plastic masks, through the virus, I was going crazy. I said, you're putting that right in your mouth. What are you doing? You can't get rid of it, guys. So that's what happens at the cellular level in cancer. It goes directly at the nucleus of that cell. The cancer cell becomes a renegade. And now it's looking for fuel. And its primary source is sugar. Okay? And things that turn to sugar. You got to remember that. Oh, Doc, I don't eat any sugar. Yeah, you eating bread? Yeah, well, that's sugar. Are you eating? Yeah, I eat oatmeal. Well, that's going to spike your blood sugar to the moon and back in a hurry. You might as well have 2 chocolate bars if you're going to eat oatmeal. What's the difference? And especially when we drink sugar. We drink it. And Dr. Martin, I'm having Tropicana. I don't care. It's bad for you. It's sugar. You're feeding cancer cells. You don't want that. So when patients came into my office, I said, okay, let's get a history. I'm talking about the ones that already had cancer. What did I see? Okay? Here's what I saw in general. I'm going to just talk in generalities. Rare exceptions to this, especially breast and prostate cancer are identical cancers. Okay? One happens in a woman and some men. And women can get prostate cancer. Okay? But they're the same cancers. They proliferate in the same way. They're caused by the same thing. Here's what I used to see. One, okay? Low levels of vitamin D. Almost invariably. Low levels of vitamin D. And today, good luck trying to get your vitamin D levels tested. I mean, doctors, vitamin D, that's for your bones. Why do you want that tested? What's that got to do with the immune system? I hear it all the time. It has everything to do with the immune system. When you look at cells, they got a little antenna up there looking for the sun and vitamin D. The greatest cancer fighter in terms of vitamins is vitamin D. The sun. Got it? Well, when you have low vitamin D, your T cells, your Navy SEALs, your immune system, one big part of it's not the only part of your immune system, but a big part of the immune system was vitamin D and what it does to your Navy SEALs. It charges them up, man. So we saw a lack of vitamin D, high levels of estrogen, even in men, high levels of insulin, high levels of insulin resistance. That's food, my friend. That's food. My name is Tony, and I'm a carboholic. And almost every cancer patient I ever saw, and they didn't know because nobody told them. Nobody told them that they were living on carbohydrates. That's Canada's food guide. It's the US food guide. They got it wrong. You don't need grains to be healthy. You need your fiber. Ooh, I used to get so uptight about fiber. I said the best fiber is not fiber. The best fiber is water. That's what your bowel needs. H2O, not fiber. And then, so what we would see, okay, too much estrogen, too much insulin. Here's another one, big factor. Almost invariably, a big factor. High cortisol. High cortisol. I wrote a book, 2 hormones that want you dead. Okay? Serial killers. What are 2 serial? Not with a C, although cereal will kill you. Cereals are serial killers. They are. And Dr. Kellogg's I call him a serial killer. Now, he might have been a nice guy. Okay? He might not have meant it. Okay? But he was wrong. Not a person on the planet should ever eat cereal. Ever. You don't need fiber. You need water. And probiotics. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, okay, so what do we see? Low levels of vitamin D, high levels of insulin, high levels of estrogen, okay? High levels of estrogen, high levels of cortisol. Two serial killers with an S. Insulin and cortisol. And I could have used estrogen as a serial killer. Too much? Bad news. Okay? Bad news. And cortisol, that's what cortisol is. And again, if I scare you, no big deal. Your body knows exactly what to do. But I used to call your little, your adrenal glands adrenal on top of kidneys. They're two little glands on top of your kidneys. They're the size of a chestnut, okay? I don't know if that's the size of a chestnut, but that's what I can do with my fingers. Here's a chestnut. You got two of them. They secrete cortisol and epinephrine, and that's all right if I'm scaring you. Sometimes I scare people with my voice. They go too loud. I remember a lady in the office one time coming, and as soon as I started, I just said hello. She goes, "Get it down. I don't like a loud voice. I said you're in the wrong place." I shouldn't be like that. But it was my office. You're trying to change my personality. I won't do it. This lady's going, and I said, nah. And I said, you want to leave now? I'm bad, eh? Okay. So this is important, guys. Cortisol. What does cortisol do? Well, it pours gasoline on the fire of inflammation, which is another factor in destroying normal cells and turning them into renegades, cancer cells. Cortisol is a big, big factor. I'll tell you, when I used to do the history of people with prostate cancer and men, women, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, whatever, I'm telling you, I rarely ever saw a case that didn't have high cortisol. Rarely. It's the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm. So look, there's no guarantees in life, okay? But here we are today. Let me give you a statistic that ought to be frightening. Okay? People have always died, by the way. Okay, so there's no living, with this body, you ain't living forever. Okay? So just, you know that, I know that. But, okay, you go back 70, 80 years ago, okay? And cancer would be found in 1 out of 50 people. Now, it wasn't like there was no cancer. Of course there was cancer. But it was rare. People died. Of course they did. So there's been some great advances in modern medicine. But here we are today in 2023. And here is a frightening statistic. Here's a frightening statistic. 1 out of 2 will be given a diagnosis with the C word in their lifetime. It's now 1 out of 2. Do you think we're winning the war on cancer? I'll tell you why we're not winning the war on cancer. Because we're looking for love in all the wrong places. it's genetics, it's your, it's this, it's that, it's bad luck, and I tell you guys, people that really analyze these things, they scratch their head to see how little progress we've made in cancer. It's the same thing. They wait till you get cancer. And the only thing that of course, I agreed with this 1,000,000%. The only thing that even made a temporary dent, it was only temporary, in cancer was when they told people to stop smoking. I was 100% behind that. Stop smoking. That oxidizes, that causes free radical damage, especially in the nucleus of your cells, and will turn them into a renegade. I like that. That was prevention. Stop smoking. But they don't tell you to stop eating sugar. They tell you to get out of the sun when you should be in the sun. Don't burn. There's a war going on vitamin D today. How crazy is that? There's a war on. Oh, vitamin D, Dr. Martin, you're always talking about vitamin D. Come on. Yeah, I mean it. Okay, guys. I thought I'd bring you that little thing. I hope you forgave me for my little drawing. Okay. Now remember, tomorrow, afternoon session. Okay? Friday is what? Question and answer. Now, I know a lot of you are on the meal replacement. How are you enjoying that? How are you enjoying that smoothie? Now, let me just give you a little tidbit, okay? Why don't I like protein powders on their own? Okay, so just take a protein powder and put it in water or mix it or whatever, or put it in, juice or whatever. What makes protein? You have to understand the bioavailability of protein. Why do I love collagen protein? Okay? Why? Fat. Nature. See, God wants you to have fat with protein. Not carbs. Fat with protein. When you eat a steak, you got protein and fat. When you eat an egg, don't just eat the egg whites. That's silly. Eat the yolk. Why? Protein, fat. Cheese. Protein, fat. Dr. Martin's Perfect Smoothie, protein, fat. You put them together. You're going to get a lot more protein in the mixture. Your body, it's bioavailable, meaning your cells are going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. That is really absorbable protein. Understand that? Why do I talk about that all the time? I have a one-track mind. Eggs, meat, and cheese. EMC. And even when you do the meal replacement, you're getting protein and you're getting fat, no carbs. Or very little carbs. If you want to make a kid, your grandchild or your child, you want to give them something that they can drink that is so good for them, Dr. Martin's Perfect Smoothie. And if you want to put a little bit of, and I mean not Aunt Jemima's, or did they change the name of that now? A little pinch of maple syrup for them, you go ahead, and you're gonna be giving them something that is so good for them, and they will enjoy the taste. That's what that heavy cream is all about. It's fat with protein together. Okay? I just thought I'd talk about that because many of us are doing the meal replacement program. You eat one meal, pick your one you want, and you can have one shake to replace the meal or 2 shakes a day. Okay? Whatever you want. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you soon.